So today we're going to be looking at the rise of John Hunyadi. So let's get to it.
As the Byzantines were left politically and religiously divided after the Council of Florence, significant developments coming out of Hungary would become the catalyst of events to come for the following 2 decades. The death of King Sigismund back in 1437 caused a period of political instability in Buda, as the former king had no male heirs to succeed him to the throne. Eventually, Sigismund's son-in-law, Duke Albert of Austria, was elected as the new King of Hungary, in return for conceding a number of political concessions to the Hungarian nobility. Being faced with a Transylvanian peasant revolt, Ottoman raids from Wallachia, and an unruly nobility at home, the new foreign King of Hungary, like his predecessor before him, spent the first months of his reign placating the local officials of his capital and his realm. This sudden wave of Hungarian instability was not lost on Edirne. Seeing significant signs of political weakness from his main European rival, the opportunistic Murad II invaded his vassal of Serbia in order to solidify Ottoman military control over the Western Balkans. By August of 1439, the newly founded Serbian capital of Smederevo had fallen under a 3-month siege, and soon after, all of Serbia officially became an Ottoman province under the direct rule of Edirne. While Serbian...
Wow. Okay, so yeah, Murat's going for it. It makes sense. Hungary has kind of been the main power that is closest to the Ottomans, and again, their main rival. So this is quite the opportunity to really mess them up. But man, Serbia, that has hung on for so long, is finally stamped out, fully losing its independence. They hung on long, though. I had to give them that.
Despot Juraj Brankovic fled to Buda in horror. The political situation for Hungary got even worse, as in the fall of the same year, the newly crowned King Albert died of dysentery while mustering an army to repulse the Ottoman offensive. As a result of Albert's sudden death and the dissolution of his army, Murad began his siege on the Hungarian fortress city of Belgrade in 1440.
Again, this is like one of Hungary's worst moments, right? And Murad is just like, this is like the best thing ever for Murad. He's like, holy crap, my main rival is now leaderless, it's weak. Like, he's just taking it all now, like, definitely opportunistic. But if there's ever a time to strike, I think now is that time, you know?
Its conquest would open up the rest of Hungary for future Ottoman military campaigns. Even though the 5-month siege failed to penetrate the walls of Belgrade, it sent shockwaves across the whole region, as a sizable Muslim army was now at the gates of Central Europe. Back in Buda, the political scene had become even more chaotic, as King Albert's sudden death had caused a power vacuum in the kingdom. Even though the late king's widow had given birth to a posthumous son, Ladislaus V, much of the Hungarian nobility rejected the infant's claim to the Hungarian throne, as many preferred a monarch capable of dealing with the current Ottoman crisis on the southern border. As a result, the 15-year-old King Władysław III of Poland was offered the crown by the estates of the realm, thus sparking the flames of a Hungarian civil war.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Murad was also suggested as a candidate for King of Hungary, but his loss of domains in Serbia made him unfavorable. Yeah.
Between 1440 and 1441, the supporters of Ladislaus V and Władysław III clashed all across the country, culminating in the latter's decisive win against the former at the Battle of Bátezek. As the infant King of Hungary fled to the safety of Austria, Władysław entered Buda and began consolidating his hold over his newly acquired kingdom by appointing loyal men to offices of power. One such man was a talented Hungarian military magnate named John Hunyadi.
Okay, so this is interesting. The king or ruler of Poland is now in control of Hungary. So, definitely probably not absorb it directly, but he is basically in charge of it now. Almost like ruling 2 kingdoms. We know Hungary continues to exist later on, so I'm assuming this John guy is probably gonna take power for himself, or... I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Whose martial skill had won Władysław the throne at Bátezek. Being appointed the voivode of Transylvania and the military governor of many of the kingdom's southern border counties, Hunyadi became one of the most influential and active members of the new Hungarian court overnight. First repairing the damaged walls of Belgrade from the recent Ottoman siege, Hunyadi began his tenure as a major political figure by launching a major raid into Ottoman-held Serbia during the late summer of 1441. In a surprise turn of events, the Hungarian magnate was able to score a shocking victory over the local Muslim governor of Smederevo in a field battle before raiding the local countryside. In a response to this defeat, Murad II ordered a raiding army to strike deep into Transylvania through Wallachia the following year. However, this army was also defeated and routed by Hunyadi at the Battle of Hermannstadt.
Holy crap. Okay, John Hunyadi ain't messing around. You know, he basically won the civil war for his king, and now he's going around and like straight up basically urging the Ottomans to fight him. Alright, I'm actually really looking forward to this, I'm not gonna lie. I wanna see what he's made of. So far, he seems like a force to be reckoned with.
In the wake of the battle, the Hungarian magnate was celebrated as a war hero in Buda, as he was one of the few Europeans who had proven capable of beating the Ottomans in open battle. It was from these early victories against the Muslims that Hunyadi was hailed as the White Knight of Transylvania by not only his own countrymen, but also throughout Christian Europe.
Wow.
Meanwhile, as a result of the defeat at Hermannstadt, an ever-so-enraged Murad blamed the misfortunes of his armies on his Wallachian vassal Vlad II. The Wallachian voivode was called forth to Edirne and was put under house arrest, while his eldest son, Mircea II, took control of Wallachia. This move by the Ottoman Sultan proved to be a big mistake. Seeing an opportunity to subdue the unstable buffer country into Hungarian vassalage once more, Hunyadi invaded Wallachia during the fall of 1442 and defeated an Ottoman force near the river Yalomitsa in yet another surprising showcase of military prowess.
Wow, okay. Harim, once a court eunuch, rose to become the Beylerbeyi of Rumelia, only to be stripped of his title after his failure at this battle. Dang, that sucks. But holy crap, dude, this John guy is pretty cool. He's winning battles. I'm wondering if Murad's gonna have to deal with him personally.
In this particular engagement, over 16 Ottoman marcher lords were killed, alongside thousands of Ottoman raiders and janissaries. After the battle, the cousin of the former Wallachian ruler, the pro-Hungarian Basarab II, was installed as voivode, while
Freaking Wallachia just keeps flipping. This entire series, they've been independent, they've been a vassal, they've been independent, then they've been a vassal of Hungary, then of the like, freaking Wallachia just keeps jumping everywhere. It really did have the misfortune of just being placed between two great powers, right? But it just keeps getting, like take a drink every time Wallachia changes its alignment and whatnot.
Mircea II fled into hiding with his loyal followers in the countryside. During his journey back to Hungarian territory, Hunyadi also sacked and razed the Ottoman town of Vidin as a showcase of strength against Edirne. Hunyadi's military campaign into Wallachia had been a major psychological success for Buda, which now saw itself as capable of standing against Ottoman aggression after many years of military defeats.
It is a sudden shift, right? Like, not too long ago, Hungary was basically at its lowest point, raided by the Ottomans, civil war, without a king, and now overnight, seemingly, they have become a force to be reckoned with, beating the Ottomans, ending the civil war, bringing Wallachia into the fold, all thanks to John Hunyadi. That is quite the dramatic shift, right?
Moreover, for the first time in decades, the war had been shifted into Ottoman territory, thus finally giving a period of respite for the new subjects of Władysław III. In spite of these military disasters, Murad II was determined to respond to what he saw as Hungarian aggression. Hence, he released Vlad II from his captivity and sent him to retake Wallachia at the head of an army. By the spring of 1443, Basarab's support in the country had withered away as he lacked the political support of his nobility, and so Vlad quickly seized the Wallachian capital. With Ottoman influence restored in the country, a new agreement between Edirne and Targovishte was signed by the restored Wallachian ruler. He was to pay an increased yearly tribute to the Ottoman capital, supply 500 children for the Sultan's Janissary corps, and lastly, give his second and third eldest sons, Vlad and Radu, as hostages to the royal court of Murad.
Yeah, I have looked a lot into the life of Vlad the Impaler, who I find to be a very underrated military commander. I think he was incredibly great at what he did, and I really was captivated by Vlad II. And also, I guess the big one is that people claim he was an inspiration to Dracula himself, though there have been some debate among that if Bram Stoker actually saw that, or just Bram Stoker just saw the name Dracula or Dracula and went with that. It's a whole thing, but still, the popular consensus is that he himself was, the inspiration. And again, essentially spending his early life with his brother Radu, also known as Radu the Fair or Radu the Handsome, living under the Ottoman yoke, basically as hostages. Vlad was eventually installed as, the ruler of Wallachia. He had 2 reigns. He was removed, and then he came back, and then his pretty successful military campaigns against Mehmed II, and, his infamous impaling habits. A very cruel ruler, a very brutal one, who somehow was more brutal than his contemporaries, which is quite the achievement, because this was a very brutal world, and the Ottomans themselves were no strangers to it. Again, there's just so much I love about Vlad II, Vlad, Tepes, I meant Vlad the Impaler. I kept saying Vlad II, 2 different people, but, yeah, Vlad the Impaler, who I'll just keep calling. Just overall, I really liked him. I remember when I used to play Dungeons and Dragons, I would do a lot of world building with history and whatnot, and I based one of my kings of the fictional kingdom that my players were in on Vlad the Impaler. He did a similar thing where he, I think, impaled a lot of people and one to psychologically ward off an invasion. So like I said, this is a character in history who I have a lot of interest in and who I just really like. I find him underrated as a military commander. I think he was incredibly great. So yeah, we should get back to the video, but I'm happy to see him appear.
As events in Wallachia settled down, troubling developments elsewhere began trickling down to the Ottoman capital. With the Council of Florence concluding with the triumph of Catholicism over Orthodoxy in Byzantine affairs, and enthusiasm in the air after Hunyadi's successful military campaigns against Murad II, the momentum around Europe to call forth a crusade against the Ottomans grew stronger than ever. With Władysław III getting political assurances from King Frederick III of Germany that he would not attack his domains from the west, the field was set for another Hungarian military offensive into Ottoman territory. By the start of 1443, Pope Eugene IV published a crusading bull against the Ottomans, and by Palm Sunday of the same year, Buda declared war on Edirne. Władysław, together with John Hunyadi and a still exiled Juraj Brankovic, spent most of the summer mustering a great crusading army. Many in the Crusader camp were optimistic about the upcoming campaigning, as the majority of the main Ottoman army under Murad had been redeployed to Anatolia to deal with the Karamanids. Upon the instigation of Byzantine and Phoenician diplomats, Ibrahim II Bey of
the freaking Karamanids have been a thorn on the sides of the Ottomans since the very beginning. These guys don't quit. They've lost so many times, but they do not quit. You have to kind of admire that.
The Karamanids launched an invasion of Ottoman Anatolia during the summer of 1443, as he believed that Murad would be too preoccupied against the Crusaders in the Balkans by then. However, a coordinated attack against Edirne was botched, as the Crusader army was nowhere to be seen, thus leaving the Karamanid Bey at the mercy of the Ottoman Sultan. Murad and his eldest son, Sezada Alaeddin, would spend the majority of the summer raiding and plundering the lands of the recently declared infidel ruler of the Karamanids. In spite of a quick military victory, the Sultan of the Ottomans signed a quick peace treaty with Ibrahim, as he did not want to invoke a war with the Mamluks, who had friendly ties to Konya. The sudden death of Alaeddin, caused by a horse accident during the campaign, might have also contributed to a quick peace settlement. Whatever the cause, by the early fall of 1443, Murad had secured his eastern borders.
Dang.
Meanwhile, over in Europe, a readied Crusader army of around 25,000 strong had invaded Ottoman Serbia while the Sultan was busy wrapping up the Karamanid War. The Polish-Hungarian king led the army, but in reality, John Hunyadi held the most military influence in the Crusader camp.
Yeah, I would hope, because John Hunyadi so far has had so much success against the Ottomans. It would be surprising if he wasn't in charge of this. You know what I mean? I feel like just by experience and just by like skill, he definitely should be like kind of, you know, if not leading, an incredibly important figure in leading. You know what I mean? So that's good to hear. Like, I actually do, even I'm a little optimistic and a little bit worried for the Ottomans right now, because John Hunyadi, if he's in control, that's a bit nervous. But this only means, hopefully, that him and Murad come into contact, because I kind of want to see now who would win between Murad and John. Who would be the better leader, and it depends if the friggin' Crusaders are on the same page, because as we saw last time with the French, who just like Leroy Jenkins did, and just ran for it, didn't listen to the plan at all, and got themselves their butts kicked. Hopefully the Crusaders are more willing to follow the lead of Hungary this time around. If not, then oosh.
The army consisted of 6,500 Hungarian infantry, 5,000 Transylvanian mixed cavalry and infantry, 1,500 Czech mercenary cavalry, 9,000 Serbians, led by the still exiled Juraj Brankovic, 1,000 infantry from Bulgaria, Albania and Bosnia, and lastly a small Western European contingent of 2,000, led by Cardinal Julian Cesarini.
Okay, all right. This is a cool composition.
The Hungarian magnate led the vanguard alongside his best mounted knights, while the king and the supply wagons followed a single day's march behind him. Like the Crusade of Nicopolis conducted by King Sigismund back in 1396, the main goal of the new crusade was also to re-establish a number of Christian buffer states in the Balkans, while at the same time coming to the aid of Constantinople. The military campaign started strong for the Crusaders, as they were able to rout 3 provincial Ottoman armies near the outskirts of the town of Niš in a series of 3 battles. Hunyadi had prevented these Ottoman armies from uniting into a larger force with the help of his newly formed light cavalry corps, called the Hussars.
I know of the Hussars. I know of the famed Hussars and their, horsemanship overall. Yeah, pretty great. Especially the winged Hussars, I believe. Yeah, mainly of the winged Hussars, and, they're pretty famous. And overall, once again, John proves to be, I'm going to give him the MVP award, because he's carrying hard against the Ottomans. So far, he might be one of the most successful, under the banner of Christendom, to actually do well against the Ottomans, so... But then again, Crusades usually do start strong a lot of times before things just fall apart, so I'm just wondering, when's the moment everything goes south? Because, things are going too smoothly.
A direct response to the highly mobile Akinci light horsemen of the Ottoman army. It was to be after these defeats that a certain Ottoman governor named Eskender Bey, a son of a former Albanian feudal lord, deserted his post and instigated a major rebellion back in his homeland. In the meantime, Murad II had crossed into Europe with his Anatolian army and began mustering more troops in Sofia in order to deal with the sizable Crusader host. Perhaps in desperation, he declared jihad on the invaders as a way to quickly fill up his ranks, as
okay, that's smart. But also, I think he did mention the word desperate, because I think even Murad is starting to see this is quite a threat. Not only is this army huge, 25,000 strong, but also it's led by a very dangerous person, of John Hunyadi. So, yeah, Murad's gonna need all the advantages he can get. And again, I'm hoping to see them fight. Like, I kind of really want to see now, these two great commanders battle it out and see who proves to be the better.
much of the Ottoman Balkan army had been disbanded for the winter. However, with the Crusader army now marching down south towards the Ottoman capital, the decision to implement a scorched earth strategy was taken by the Ottoman Sultan, which saw the evacuation and burning down of Sofia and many other villages in the local.
I think this goes to also show not only, I think it goes to show a bit of desperation, but I think just more of the seriousness of the situation that Murad is even resorting to scorched earth, because usually that's a move you go for when you're dealing with a huge threat and something you don't want to deal with directly at the moment. So I think that kind of goes to show that's kind of a bit of a sign of how seriously he's taking this threat of the Crusaders this time around. So overall, yeah.
Local area.
But again, the scorched earth policy and tactic has always been really implemented really well. Like, scorched earth usually works incredibly well, like I said. And, yeah, it's often been used to great effect against many great commanders and armies. So, but again, it is quite the loss, right? Even to yourself, but again, desperate times call for desperate measures.
By early December, the Crusaders, who themselves were low on supplies, entered a depleted and burnt down Sofia, and to make conditions worse for Hunyadi, heavy snow began pouring down on the soldiers of Christ.
Oh, that's not good.
Meanwhile, Murad, knowing that his quickly assembled army was no match against the more experienced and armoured Crusaders, had begun fortifying all mountain passes heading down south to Edirne.
Boy, if I had a nickel for every time I've seen an army use scorched earth and then proceed for winter to come, I'd have actually 3. Like, we see this plenty of times. Napoleon, the Swiss, not the Swiss, but, crap, what was it called? No, it was the Swedish against Peter the Great. Okay, the Swedish, and now here, man, we've seen this kind of scenario at the same time. This doesn't look good for the Crusaders. I don't think they're gonna pull through, guys.
The Sultan thought that through this strategy, his smaller army could use the narrow and steep terrain to bog down Hunyadi's larger host. Seeing that the bulk of the Ottoman army was stationed at Trajan's Gate, the Hungarian magnate decided to take a detour and head northeast to attempt a crossing of the less defended Zlatitsa Pass. Unbeknownst to him, Ottoman scouts in the region were alerted by this sudden move, and Murad reacted accordingly by assembling his main army at Zlatitsa.
Ooh. Yeah, okay, I'm seeing the use of artillery here. Okay, Murad seems to have outmaneuvered the Crusaders. Not only through scorched earth, but also through here.
The following battle was to be a bloody one, as both sides fought for control over an elevated snowy mountain pass during the middle of winter. While Ottoman cannons from the mountains bombarded the Crusader army in the pass below, Hunyadi was knocked off his horse by a stray lead bullet before retreating to safety with the help of his bodyguard.
Ooh.
At the end of the day, the disadvantageous terrain and fierce Ottoman resistance forced the Crusaders to begin their retreat back to friendly territory. After achieving a vital Pyrrhic victory at the Battle of Zlatitsa, Murad ordered his marcher lords to pursue and scatter the retreating Crusader army before they could reach the Hungarian border. But even in defeat, Hunyadi had one final ace up his sleeve. In the weeks after Zlatitsa, the Hungarian magnate had managed to lure his pursuing enemy into a trap near the town of Konovica in Serbia. In a sudden counterattack under the cover of nightfall, the overconfident Ottoman host was outflanked and destroyed by the Crusaders.
Dang, the oldest trick in the book. Holy crap, John. Like, even in defeat, he still manages to pull off, Like, John Hunyadi is very skilled, and again, this definitely is a victory for Murad, but again, I think Pyrrhic victory is quite the telling term, you know? Not to take away from him, I'm not trying to take away anything, but yeah, there definitely was a bit of, I guess, desperation in terms of how he went about this. Using Scorched Earth was pretty telling, and, you know, definitely, but at the end of the day, he overcame. But yeah, it goes to show just how, I guess, how seriously he took this threat, and rightfully so. So it's still a victory, you know, even if a Pyrrhic one.
More importantly, the Sultan's own son-in-law, Mahmud Chelebi, was captured during the engagement. With Hunyadi getting the last laugh, the exhausted Crusader army entered Belgrade by the end of January 1444.
Yeah, okay, so overall, John Hunyadi still, I guess, yeah, at the end, he kind of got, like, his own victory on the way out, but, still, I kind of would have liked to seen, like, a more pitched battle between the two, but still.
Ending their 3-month incursion into Ottoman lands. Although Hunyadi and Władysław were celebrated as national heroes back in the Hungarian capital, in reality, the long campaign had been a bloody stalemate for both sides. The crusade failed to seize the Ottoman capital and defeat the main Ottoman army at Slatitsa, in addition to not getting any aid through to Constantinople. On the flip side, the Ottomans had been dealt multiple defeats during the campaign and were unable to scatter an already exhausted Crusader army during their retreat. The Ottoman military class had also been demoralized during the campaign, as for the first time, the capital city was severely exposed to an invading army.
Yeah, like, again, there's a bit of ups and downs for both sides, right? But I'll say, though, I probably, for the Ottomans, might perhaps be a little bit more downside, mainly because, yeah, the demoralization. Just look how many defeats they suffered under the hands of John Hunyadi, how quickly and close to the capital. Definitely, I think in terms of psychological defeats, the Ottomans might have had the worst one, but still, at least they hung on there, and they didn't lose their main army, so yeah, again, there's ups and downs for both sides. I think the Ottomans might have a little bit more demoralization, but overall, they're still kicking.
Morale in the Balkan provinces was also at an all-time low, as the Scorched Earth campaign conducted by Murad and the sacking of many towns by the Crusaders had devastated the entire region.
Yeah, that too, the Scorched Earth. Like, again, it is a really... It's not without sacrifice, Scorched Earth. It's really effective, as we've seen. But it's also like, yeah, you're also doing damage to your own area, so... It's a move you make for great sacrifice, right?
All of these factors resulted in a general sense of doom and gloom from Ottoman officials in the capital. And to make matters worse, disastrous news in the form of an Albanian revolt and a new Karamanid invasion of Anatolia had arrived by the spring of 1444. With multiple military hotspots ravaging his realm, Murad initiated peace talks with Buda. The delighted Hunyadi wished to take advantage of the following negotiations to make major demands from the desperate Ottoman Sultan. However, many at the Hungarian court thought differently. In spite of the Hungarian magnate's wishes, many in Buda felt that the Ottomans were on the verge of total defeat, and that the war had to be continued. Cardinal Julian Cesarini led the pro-war party, as he believed that freeing the Orthodox peoples of the Balkans would bring the two churches of Rome and Constantinople closer together after the Council of Florence. Venice had also shown an interest in joining the crusade due to the military successes of 1443. With the Doge's navy, a blockade of the straits could commence, thus depriving Murad of his Anatolian army in the military campaign to come. Everything seemed poised for a great Crusader victory, and so in April of 1444, King Władysław took a solemn oath to lead another crusade against...
Okay, that doesn't look good. That was interesting. Obviously, Murad is now starting to be stretched thin, so that was a move of desperation again. to quickly secure a border, a flank, so he can deal with the other threats. But this is probably one of the rare times where Europe is like still willing to keep going, you know? Their morale is getting higher as you notice this video. Meanwhile, the Ottomans are starting to get lower. So, that doesn't look good though. Like, if they go in for another incursion, oh boy. Everything's starting to fall in on Murad. I wonder how he's gonna overcome these challenges. Though I will say though, maybe... I don't know how this goes. If obviously they don't destroy the Ottoman Empire, but like, they still could do damage to it. I'm almost wondering if they should have just went with the peace talks and just, you know, negotiated from a position of strength. Because that seems like what John Hunyadi wanted to do, but everyone else just wants to keep going, which I think it may come back to bite them, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Against the Ottomans by year's end. In the meantime, the duplicitous Peace of Szeged was signed between Buda and Edirne in the summer of the same year. In return for a 10-year truce, the Despotate of Serbia, along with its former ruler Juraj Branković, were reinstated, and Edirne paid 100,000 gold florins in war tribute.
Okay, never mind. I thought if they keep going at the moment without stopping, that would really mess up Murad, but granted, he's making big sacrifices right now, though. Giving Serbia... Freaking Serbia keeps coming back. Serbia, man, they are fighters, but Serbia has returned at last, and he's having to give up a lot, so... There definitely is, like, great he definitely is making sacrifices, but anything so he can have some peace, you know? We'll end the video right here, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.